It's important to stress that India is one of the cheapest internet data costs in the world. We have over 650 million plus connections, and we are the largest consumer broadband in the world. We add, internet consumer every 3 seconds, and we have 500 million plus Indians now using smartphones, which means actually over 77% of Indians are now accessing wireless broadband through smartphones.
Hello and a very warm welcome to another episode of Innovating India, your show that captures all the interesting, amazing work that's happening across the country. Well, today we don't have a startup founder with us, but we have a superstar bureaucrat who is actually the sounding board for a lot of entrepreneurs in the country. I've been speaking to so many of them and they swear by Mr. Kant. Mr. Kant, thank you very much. You are their voice in the corridors of power. They feel that when they talk to you, you get their issues. So thank you. We're delighted to have you on the show. Let me begin, by talking to you about India's ranking on the Global Innovation Index. We still have a long way to go. How is the Indian government approaching this concept of nurturing and fostering and building a culture of innovation and the ecosystem?
Thank you, Shweta. Great pleasure being with you. Let me start by telling you that at a time, when the entire world was reeling under the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, and when investments across the world were at an all-time low, India has attracted over $38 billion. And most of this has been for technology investments. And this is totally unprecedented. And it is actually a testimony to the favorable policy environment and ecosystem that we've been able to create. We have a robust backbone in the form of vast number of startups, I think in the form of what we now term as the Jam Trinity. We have over 50,000 tech startups with over 28 domestic unicorns. There is an immensely changed perception about entrepreneurship, and there's a large amount of both domestic and foreign capital flowing into India. If you look at 2019 alone, over 1,300 startups were added, and we are constantly innovating. And actually, during the COVID period, the Prime Minister had entrusted us in Niti Aayog with the task of developing technological products in partnership with the private sector, which would enable India to leapfrog in the post-COVID era. And as a result, we've done some innovative work. Transformational technological solutions were developed that have addressed themes ranging from financial inclusion and healthcare to telemedicine and online higher education for all. We also have the Atal Tinkering Lab of the Atal Innovation Mission here.
Right.
It's a workspace where young minds give shape to their ideas, and we've set up over 5,000 tinkering labs from class 6 onward, where students work on 3D printers, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and we equip them with tools and equipment to understand the concepts of STEM. So a lot of work has happened. And I think my belief is that going forward, the development of world-class products requires very critical inputs in terms of data-hungry young entrepreneurs, AI algorithm engineers, computing power, and AI enabling policy environment. All of this we are putting together so that we can leapfrog technologically in a very big way.
COVID has been a huge disruptor. It's been a leveler, and we've also, come across instances where the digital divide is it's coming to the fore, right? So anything that the government is thinking of doing to bridge that digital divide, which means that it'll give access to opportunities. It will also create a more enabling ecosystem for entrepreneurs who are planning on building on more digital products.
I think that's a very important question, and I firmly believe that we in India have enormous opportunity and potential to bridge this digital divide. Because, if in the next 1,000 days, and I'm a great believer that spreading broadband is very critical, and the Prime Minister from the ramparts of Red Fort have said that we'll spread broadband to all our villages in the next 1,000 days, and we are doing it in a public-private partnership format now. So my belief is that digital infrastructure is actually more important than physical infrastructure. And I've traveled to some of these most backward districts of India, what we call as the aspirational districts of India.
Right.
And I believe that in these districts and in these villages, you need education, health outcomes to be improved, learning outcomes to be improved. All this can be done only with the use of technology. If we use the traditional mode of learning, it'll take us years and years, hundreds of years. Whereas if we use technology, we can leapfrog. And therefore, the important thing is, across sectors, how do we use technology to leapfrog and how do we solve our problems?
Correct.
If India is able to solve its problems using technology, of agriculture productivity, of learning outcomes, of water shortage, all this where we can use technology, use data, create data hungry young entrepreneurs, use the power of machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms, we will actually be finding solutions not only for the 1.3 billion people of India, but for the next 5 billion people of the world. And I think really the big challenge is that our triple IITs and IITs must be all reoriented. They all must be reoriented to actually produce AI engineers and who can partner tech entrepreneurs to launch cutting edge global tech companies who are problem solvers for both India and the world. I really feel that there's a huge potential to become a global manufacturing and export hub as we move from low value and high volume products to high tech and high value products. There's a huge opportunity for India in many of these areas. The COVID has shown that it's possible for us to do it. Businesses have shown incredible levels of not just resilience, but also adaptability in these totally unprecedented times.
Is the Niti Aayog working on any specific, parameters that are crucial for making doing business in India easier? And where are we in that journey right now?
When I was Secretary DIPP, we worked on ease of doing business. We've made India jump up under Prime Minister's direction to about 79 positions in the World Bank ease of doing business. Our objective is that India must get into the top 50 and in the top 25. But we don't do this for World Bank's sake, we do it for our sake.
Sure.
Because we are a very large country. We are bigger than 25 countries of Europe, and therefore every state of India must become easy and simple. And therefore we started ranking our states. The first year we did this, Gujarat came number 1, but the next year Andhra beat Gujarat. The third year Telangana beat both Gujarat and Andhra. But the good thing that has happened is that, the eastern part of India, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, they've started coming 4th and 5th. And if they start improving, then India jumps up very substantially because these are mineral-rich states. And a very pleasant surprise this year has been that Uttar Pradesh, which was about 23rd or something, has come 2nd. So it's made a radical shift. And I think the same thing has been done across sectors. Digitizing everyone, cutting out human intervention. And I think COVID has only accelerated this process. So our efforts are actually visible through improvements across various rankings, be it ease of doing business or innovation or the logistic performance index. And what we are doing now is to tracking India's performance. We are tracking India's performance across all the global indices. That is what Niti Aayog is doing. Secondly, one of the key tasks we are doing right now is to ensure that we bring in predictability and consistency of policy across sectors. And thirdly, we are taking a series of measures on decriminalizing action so that unnecessarily where civil action is adequate, we've done a lot of work to see that we decriminalize that. As a country, we need to get into cutting edge areas of growth. We need to support our startups. Need to make India easy, simple, digitize everything. And I firmly believe that the future of India really lies in technology. We must use technology for the greater good with the private sector. It's a great example of the best of India working with the best of the world coexisting. There's no other example of one country besides India where companies like Ola and Uber, Oyo and Airbnb, Google Pay and Phone Pay, Amazon and Flipkart are all coexisting. And this is only going to improve in the coming years. I think one more point I want to make is that if you want to be a global player, it's very important to get into sunset areas of industries. So while we make things easy, the entrepreneurs also must get into sunset areas of industries and penetrate global markets. Quite often get into the sunrise areas of industry. Quite often we get into sunset areas. And we must get into sunrise areas of growth and look at where the world will grow and expand in the coming years. Because if you keep focusing on the sunset areas of industries, it'll be very difficult. Like we keep doing exports, 70% of the exports is in areas where the world is just 30% of the export. So you will never be able to grow. And therefore, the new areas of growth will be electric mobility, battery storage, 5G technologies, artificial intelligence, genomics, semiconductors, data storage. These will all be the emerging areas of growth in the coming years. And these are areas where we must produce entrepreneurs who become global champions. And this is where the future of India really lies.
What are the sunrise industries that you are betting on that will really take off in the post-COVID world?
We do a lot of work in Niti Aayog on battery storage, and I think that is really a great area of future which will blend both electric mobility as it will unfold and the grid storage. So this is a very, very important area of growth. Secondly, climate change is upon us, and the Prime Minister has committed that we move from 175 gigawatt in 2022 of clean power to 450 gigawatt by 2030. And this will necessitate us to move very rapidly towards new forms of solar energy. And a lot of technological disruption is taking place in this area. Moving straight, without going through ingot, straight into wafers or getting into hetero technology. And on the transportation side, getting into shared, connected and electric mobility. These are all areas of the future. And I think machine learning, because we throw up so much amount of data, we have a vast number of STEM engineers. So machine learning and artificial intelligence will be very critical. And I think, therefore, because we'll have a huge amount of data, data storage will be a massive area of growth. And lastly, while we've been late starters in 2G, 3G and 4G technology, we must bet big on 5G technology, which will cut across sectors. It connect everything, and therefore, if you want to drive transportation, if you want to drive smart cities, 5G technology will be the key. And I think, lastly, I will touch upon genomics, which will be a very major area of transformation in the coming years. And these are areas where we must throw up major entrepreneurship in the private sector in the coming years.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Mr. Kant. It was, as always, very, very insightful to talk to you. And we do hope that the post-COVID world throws up new innovation and interesting ideas, especially for India. Thank you.